is 1 p.m. and we're calling meeting to order. We're going to call this meeting to order. It's now 1 p.m. on February 12th, and this is a meeting for the City of Portland's Police Commission, Subcommittee of Bylaws and Internal Processes. Excuse me. Sorry, my screen is not working right. There we go. And we're going to go over some logistics. First, if the Spanish language interpreters, Ruth and Thalia, can you please give the information on Spanish interpretation?
Hello, good afternoon. This is Ruth, the Spanish interpreter. Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy buenas tardes a todos. Bienvenidos a esta sesión. Vamos a ver, para accesar la interpretación en español, por favor, debajo de su pantalla van a encontrar un globo terráqueo donde se pueden comunicar o tratar de escuchar esto simultáneo en español. Si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor, pónganla en el chat y yo con muchísimo gusto les ayudo a conectarse. Gracias.
Thank you. The city also offers ASL interpretation, which is being provided by Amanda and Andrea. You can pin their video feed in the feed if that's helpful to you. Finally, closed captioning is turned on in Zoom as another means of assistance. Please note that this is an automatic captioning service and is not always accurate. The City of Portland, or the city, supports access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other languages support as well. Please email in advance of future public meetings, either as a response to public meeting notices or directly to police accountability at portlandoregon.gov to ask for other assistance, including interpretation in other language. This meeting is a public meeting subject to City of Portland's administrative code and Oregon state law and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be asked to ask questions using Zoom's Q&A feature. As commissioners are presenting and are discussing other things, if attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversation during the meeting and future meetings and agenda topics. We like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both question and answer will be visible to you and will become part of the meeting recording. To access this feature, just click on the Q&A icon in the middle of your screen. And I will move it over to the co-chairs if you're available to talk about the subcommittees, bylaws and internal processes, if you wish. Hello? Lovisa or Jason? Okay. I will go on. The commission in early December had 2 public meetings to set up the organizational phase. We are part of the organizational phase right now. This is the subcommittee for developing bylaws and other governing documents. This is the 3rd meeting. We had one in January and one in December. The rest of the work phase will happen through the rest of 2022 and 2023. And the council consideration will be at the end of 2023. Let's see. So the organizational phase starts in March and it will, will end in March. Today is the third meeting. In the next 3 weeks, we'll have a meeting March 10th for the bylaws and subcommittee and the interim processes for final adjustments of the bylaws and potential agreements to send them to the full commission for review. That will be March 10th. And then the later part of March, there'll be a meeting of the full commission focusing on values, principles, bylaws, and finalizing documents for the organizational phase. Today's meeting objectives is highlighted in this orange here, yellow orange. Today we'll be focusing on adjusting core sections for feedback and discussing the remainder of the sections. Today's primary objective is to continue discussing the bylaws. There will be at least one more meeting for each of the subcommittees and 2 more of the full commission. Let's see. Guidelines for today's meeting. Purpose, I guess the next slide, please. Continue discussion on bylaws, continue discussion on suggested text, and we will also have time for public comment today. Let's see. Let's go over the community standards for today's meeting. Keep the needs and concerns of the local community and the larger region at the forefront of the work. Keep focus on the objective and the meeting and individual agenda items. Utilize factors to note additional topics for discussion. Obviously, please arrive on time and be prepared. Let the group know if you're unable to attend meetings. Keep multitasking to a minimum. Contribute to the overall success of the group by finding ways to participate that best meets your needs. Treat others with respect and support and be supportive of one another. Keep in mind that everyone has their own truths. Listen without an agenda and refrain from interruptions. Be polite, courteous, and thoughtful. Assume good intention from all your colleagues and collaborators. Challenge ideas rather than individuals. Approach different opinions with curiosity. Seek to understand. Use I statements. Affirm other speakers. Do not use violent words instead. Instead, say something positive about the previous speaker and simply add your own thoughts. Respect privacy. Everything we share is in confidence and is confidential, other than it being a public meeting. And of course, honor the decision of the group. Folks agree to those? Please. Let's see here. I think I've got over most of the logistics. Thank you for showing your agreement in the chat. Our discussion today, just please be brief. Anyone can speak multiple times, but take no more than 1 minute for each time you speak. Be facilitated. So raise your hand on Zoom. Allow me to call on you to keep the conversation rolling and be constructive. Look forward and discuss how to make this subcommittee work more successfully in the future with each question. And now we're going into the actual meat of the meeting, which is drafting of the bylaws. And I will turn this over to the chairs, the co-chairs, please.
Thank you so much, Ayamide. I'm happy to speak first, just to first say thank you so much, everybody, for all of your work that you've been doing, all the suggestions that you've been giving via email. It's been so helpful, and people have some really incredible comments and questions and suggestions, and we'll look at those today and start to talk about them today. I guess some general framing is that we won't be taking any votes per se today. And I think, I mean, we should make sure that this is correct, but I think that in general, what we're looking for is, do we have what I might call, soft consensus, general consensus around getting to a place where everyone feels pretty good with the language that we have before we refer it to the full PAC, which I believe right now it's not scheduled that we'll do that at the next PAC meeting in March, but at the second full PAC meeting in March. And that we will have one more meeting of this bylaws subcommittee meeting after this meeting, where we will focus specifically on trying to get to a place where we're pretty happy with the bylaws as they are written. Something that I wanted to bring up, because we have talked about it a few times. Sorry, wait, can everybody hear me okay? Just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you. Something we've talked about a few times is an operational document, or having something that is not a bylaws document, but sort of goes together with a bylaws document that might contain, sort of nitty-gritty details that don't necessarily need to go into bylaws. We've talked about it in general. I've heard a few subcommittee members say, in general, it's a good idea, but I don't think that we've so far gone forward with that. So I wanted to make that suggestion that we do go forward with collecting ideas for things that would go into that document today. So just having that be an option as we're going through things, if there's something that seems like it's more appropriate for an operational document, that we flag those. And then, yeah, maybe at the end of the meeting, we could ask for volunteers who would break into drafting groups, kind of similar to what we did with bylaws, and go ahead and make an operations doc, which I think could be really helpful. That way we don't have to cram quite as much possibly into the bylaws. Okay, Jason, do you have anything that you'd like to say before we get into this?
Sure. I think it would be good if we're going to talk about operations, a separate document to think about what belongs in the bylaws versus what belongs in an ancillary document, and to be able to have a common understanding together, not on every item, but on just a general understanding of what goes in one bucket versus what goes in another. Do you want to speak also about the communications document?
I see there's a question.
If we could hold just for a moment. And Lovisa, do you want to speak about the communications separate document as well, or do we want to hold off on that for now?
I don't know enough about the communications document to speak about it.
Let's pass on that.
Mm-hmm.
Zoe?
I'm a little resistant to the idea of having a separate document for operations. I think that it's not really necessary, and I'd rather just see this document include everything that will be for operations. I don't know if there's substantial enough content to really necessitate a separate operations document, and I think that's maybe an additional task that might slow us down. I also am a bit worried that it just won't get done. So yeah, that's sort of my feeling about having a separate operational document.
I see downtown's right.
Yeah, thank you. So I feel like there are things that we've already run into in drafting these bylaws, such as specific numbers that make up a quorum or make up a voting majority, 60%, that it'll just clutter up the bylaws. If you're trying to kind of look for your rules really quickly, you want to have it just be kind of laid out really cleanly. And then if there's something where like that, where we can say, oh, 60% of 19 people is this, 60% of 18 people is this, then we can put that in that other document. So that's what I'm suggesting. I'm hoping that we can kind of put those things in a bin as we move along today of things that we could put into that separate document. I understand the urge to try to put everything in one place, but I feel like then it becomes a very long document and hard to follow.
The comments on an ancillary operating document? Debbie?
So we could just start it, as you suggested, Jason, just start like writing down things that if we decide to have an operational document, these would be things that make sense to put there. And then at the end, when we see what we have in the bylaws and what this list looks like, we can decide if it makes sense to just have them all in one place, or if there's enough of these things that we've identified that seem like they're just, this is kind of how we do it, to justify making that separate document. So in other words, at the end, decide, you know, we've got these two things, what we think should go in the bylaws and these other items, and then think then, after we see the whole picture, what's the best way to go?
Zoe, does that sound satisfactory? Let's proceed along Debbie's lines and try to make a bin and put things in it, and then at the end see if they belong in the bylaws or not. Sort of an example of what belongs in the bylaws is how many members are on the committee. But an example of something that may not belong in the bylaws are at what time, on how often should staff upload external emails that the commission has been sent by the public to the website? So it's more miscellaneous and more instructions rather than consensual agreements.
Thank you, Jason. I also wanted to make sure that there wasn't any other thoughts about the topic at hand before you go into that. Just wanted to make sure that no one else had any. Okay, great.
Louisa, you want to continue?
Well, okay, if there's no other, are there any just general questions that anyone has about the framing of the bylaws and what we're doing today that they want addressed really quick? Okay, we'll see. Seeing no hands, I guess we can go ahead and start to take a look at this document. So the process that we used to create this was Jason and I have taken all of the comments, questions, proposed edits that people have sent us via email the past 2 weeks, and collated them into one document. Samir also did a round of edits and formatting to try to make it all make sense. And basically here we have our document. We have our language, we have proposed alternatives, we have proposed edits. So I think we can try to go ahead and go through. I want to make sure that I'm following the agenda. So I think that it's sort of roughly that we'll do 2 sections of discussion today. We'll do continued discussion where we talk about things we've looked at before or seen before, and then we'll do a discussion of bylaws sections specifically about officers and subcommittees that we have not had a chance to talk about before, if that's agreeable to everyone. Okay. All right, well, starting out at the beginning, we have our introduction.
Lavisa, if I can interrupt for a moment.
Sure.
We have a staff person, Samir Kanal, is going to be doing some live editing. Is that correct, Samir? Are we able to do that?
Correct. Yes.
So perhaps if we go from top to bottom,
Mhm.
we can remove language and add language. So we'll be able to see more clearly what the actual language is, the Finnish language.
All right. Okay, so I think everyone's had a chance to look at this document. I think the final round of edits, I think, just came to you a couple of hours ago, so you may not have had that. But the general language, things without edits, I think we've all had for, I think, at least a week, I think, at this point. So if anyone has any thoughts or ideas as we're going through, please raise your hand or jump in. We want to get through things, but yeah, not at the expense of hearing anyone's good thoughts or opinions about them. All right, introduction. The Police Accountability Commission was created by the Portland City Council on July 28th, 2021, as part of the implementation of ballot measure 26-217, Charter 210, approved by the City of Portland voters on November 3rd, 2020.
I would just like to point out that this is the fourth document, and then you'll be doing the fifth document after the break. Just for clarification.
Thanks, I muted. All right. A, purpose. The Commission's purpose is to develop proposed deletion all, proposed add the framework and details necessary to implement ballot measure 26-217, and create a new proposed edit add community police oversight board to replace the independent police review agency. Trying to make sure that I understand correctly the edits. And as we're going down, if there's any confusion, if the person who made the edits would like to speak on their edits and sort of give us a brief idea of why they feel this clarification helps, please feel free.
That would be Catherine.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Okay, so you'll see throughout the document that I suggested a lot of sort of minor wording changes, and I guess I hope that doesn't slow us down. What I did though was try to just sync the language of our bylaws to the extent possible with our charging documents, the resolutions that we've cited here. So this purpose statement, it's just a small change. The resolutions talk about the framework and details. So I was just trying to echo that language where we could. Similarly, it talks about a community police oversight board. So I was you'll see some minor changes like that from me, really just trying to sync up our bylaws to the charging document. And that's true, as I'll just in advance of the next edit, which seems like a big edit, was really just the powers and duties, trying to go through and just extract from the resolutions, the material elements of our charge, just in some ways, so that can also be a reference document for us, that we're meeting those elements, and I'll just say that in the section that I deleted, the review and recommended amendments to the charter and provide a written report, I deleted those two because those are in the optional part of the resolution. Those are optional, like if we feel like we need to suggest a change to the charter, we can. If we want to write a report, we can, but the things that I added below are the things that we are required to do. So these are all sort of technical, just to ensure greater alignment between our bylaws and the charging documents.
Thank you, Catherine. So in this case, would the language read, so with these edits, it would read the commission's purpose is to develop all the framework and details necessary to implement ballot measure 26-217 and create a new community police oversight board to replace the independent police review agency. Okay, what do folks think about that?
Can we see the gallery view? So when we come back to ask for agreement, general consensus on a particular item, we'll come back to this gallery view so we can see everybody's nodding or hands raised or thumbs up. Or Debbie, you have a comment?
I just have a question. It says that we're creating, and I was just wondering if really we're recommending to City Council a way that they would vote on the code to create it. But it's just a small thing that jumped out at me. But so I don't know if I'm on target on that. I just wanted to throw out my question about the create word.
Zoe?
I think all these edits are really amazing, and thank you so much for all of your work, Catherine. The one thing that I just sort of struck me as a little odd, and this could just be a reflection of the charging documents, was the addition of the word community. I think that it's sort of a stronger statement to say that we're creating a new police oversight board. Community police oversight board, while technically true, kind of implies to me that it's not official, or not like the police oversight board, but rather one that is like operated informally by the community, if that makes sense. So I just think the language is stronger without community in front of it, even though that is what we're designing, if that makes sense.
Catherine?
No, I don't, I just want to say, I don't feel strongly about that. And as is the case of many of these, I don't really feel strongly about them. I just really was trying to do that exercise of alignment. And I suppose the community ad is really just designed maybe to invoke the exercise we're going through of really developing this from the community, but I don't have a strong view on whether we should have that in or not. So I'll just defer to the will of the group on that.
Jason, I also saw Angie's hand up at one point. Or did you take it down? Or are you done?
It was just doing a thumbs up. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Just looking at the group for general agreement on Zoe's proposal to remove Catherine's edit of community. Sophia?
You're muted if you're trying to speak, Sophia.
Sophia, you have a hand up?
Yes. I excuse me. I don't agree or disagree, but I'm trying to find a way that it may still be included. I understand that the language you some might feel that it suggests that it's unofficial. Is that correct? I just wanted to make sure if I understood.
Not that it's unofficial, but it's sort of a stronger statement it's like a qualifier. It's like we're adding a qualifier to the beginning of the police oversight board, or it feels like we're adding a qualifier and we don't need to add that qualifier. So it's like a stronger statement without the word community in front of it. Yeah.
So I guess I'm trying to think on the fly right now. I do like the community part, but I don't want it to be something that distracts from the strength. But I don't know, maybe something to qualify the qualifier. It's saying community-led or community. Is there some other way we could include that may not I don't know, take away, right? That's my thought.
Zoe, your hand was up.
I totally hear you, Sophia. And I think that part of the issue is we have two qualifiers. We have new and community. And so if we remove new, and this is like really technical, I'm sorry, y'all. It could just be and create a community-led police oversight board or something like this. Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments about that? Thank you, Zoe. Thoughts?
Oh, Angie.
Yeah.
Sorry, my hand is buried like in all the little things, so it's hard for me to get to it. No, I just wanted to say that I like very much that it says that it might say community led, because I feel like that's what we're trying to that's our goal, is to have it community led, not city led or police led or whatnot. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
I also see Sarah's hands up. Is this in regarding to this particular question?
If we could hold on that for a moment.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Let's see if we can
Yes,
get
thank
some
you.
consensus with our group.
Wanted to make sure first.
Angie, just question, you use the term community led, which I assume is community -led. That's not in the text. But that might be does that help, Zoe?
Yeah, that was the suggestion that I made, to remove new and add like -led to community. So it would read, create a community-led police oversight board instead of create a new police oversight board.
Catherine, what do you think?
I like it. I think it, it both captures what I was trying to do, which is, use that word that's in our charging document, but I think it captures just both what Sophia, Zoe, Angie all said about trying to communicate what that word really means in this context. So I think it's a great approach.
I see Sophia nodding as well. Debbie, you commented earlier, thumbs up. Let's look around the room. Everybody okay with this? Samir, will you type in the change so we can see it? He's so good at this.
Dan, I just wanted to make sure that your hand was up. It was more just in agreement, or that you had a question. Okay, great. Thank you.
Let's move on to B. And I asked, we had some conversation by email about this item, and City Attorney Sarah Ames had some comments to make about it. Both the inclusion of the resolution numbers and the dates. Sarah, are you out there?
I am. And I do believe that the commission has all the powers and duties authorized basically by resolutions, those two resolutions. I don't think that's an issue. I'm not sure what the concern is. Part of what in this section, the combination of powers that you are authorized to exercise that aren't mandatory and duties that are mandatory is where I think we're getting into a little bit of the trickiness with drafting this section. So because you have the authority to review and recommend amendments to the charter, but you don't have to do that if you don't find that any are needed. So that's, you know, one piece of the first part that you might want to carry through into the second part. And as long as it's not said that they're all mandated. So it's a little bit tricky, some of the wording on this. I don't know if I explained that carefully, but is that understood?
So we have the powers and duties are mandated by the resolution. That doesn't imply that we need to do them necessarily, that just the powers are given to us by the resolution.
Right, they're authorized. I mean, the powers are authorized and the duties are mandated. So it's a little bit of, you know, there's certain things that you have been charged with carrying out, and certain things that you have the authority to do if in the work you find it necessary, which is the powers.
So in the text as edited here, do you see anything that's fundamentally inaccurate?
No, but I think that you also might want to include, I'm trying to look at the changes between the deleted 4 bullet items and the next 5. And I believe that you might want to include review and recommend amendments to the charter. And I don't know if the Charter Review Commission is still going to be working at the time that you're, you know, their process is a little bit farther ahead. So I don't know that you want to say to the Charter Review Commission, because clearly the City Council can refer charter amendments to the ballot separate from that process, that, you know, decade process. But you might want to include the authority to review and recommend amendments to the charter to the City Council as one of your optional authorities,
If we did not
but not your
include that,
duties.
if we did not include that, that would not preclude us from doing it.
No.
Okay. So the text is not
If
necessary.
you want to keep it to the duties that are mandatory, I think you're fine.
Dan, and then Catherine, and then Sophia.
Oh, hi, I'm Commissioner Handelman here. I appreciate the advice. I think that what I'm getting from it is that the words imposed and mandated are the problems and not anything else, so that, you know, and we hadn't even read this into the record before we started talking about it. So, but I think it should just say all powers and duties contained in those 2 resolutions, including, and that then we're not saying a mandated or authorized or any of those other verbs. Just say that they're included in there, and then I think we can get rid of the problem that the city attorney's expressed.
Catherine, do you agree?
Well, I think that I guess I will just say the nature of my edit was to go through and just try to catalog for us what do we have to do, what do we have to accomplish, and that's what's in my additions. And there's a few things that were not that are in my edit that were not in the original text. I took out 3 and 4 above the edited because those are optional. I'm totally fine adding those in to the list. If, you know, people are comfortable combining required elements of our charge and optional elements of our charge. It's fine. I don't have a strong feeling about it. I just want people to understand that I think, the city council's resolution very clearly says, here's what you're required to do, and here are some optional things that you can do. And 3 and 4 are in that optional category. So I felt like it was important to add all the things that we're required to do, which is in my edit. And I don't feel strongly about removing 3 and 4, as long as we, with that edit contained in, I think does, as Sarah and Dan have pointed out, I think that does allow you to, that's the right verb, I guess, to allow you to combine that list of optional and non-optional activities. So I know this is kind of technical. I just want to be sure everybody's following the discussion and, respond to any questions that people have about that. It is technical, but I think it's important because this is, sort of our charge and embodied in our bylaws.
Sophia.
I was just listening. I'm glad I was last to get some clarification because that's what part of my questions were. And I understand Catherine being technical, but I think this is a technical document, so it has to be technically correct. So don't feel like you're being technical when you shouldn't, because you should at this point. The other thing is I was concerned because I was wondering if just what the issue was with the first statement after B saying the commission has the powers and duties. I wasn't quite sure whether that was the statement that was concerning, but as I listened, I think I can understand it. There was some things that are not, the question was optional versus required. Is that right? Okay, I'm looking at Catherine. Okay, that's about it. I don't really have any comments about the optional items. I would only ask the question to the group as to whether they believe that the optional items would cause any confusion. That's all. I don't see it at the moment, but I all these other heads are better than mine right now because I can't see the whole picture. So that's it for me.
Any other comments or questions?
So I just want to make sure I understand the part of the issue was the use of mandated and then having things that technically are not mandated or not required for us to do, having optional items under 3 and 4. And sorry, I can't see Catherine, your face. Yeah, Catherine, I was asking, were you suggesting we could switch to the use of contained?
Yes, I think that I can't remember, it was Sarah and Dan both suggested that if we used a different term that encompassed both duties authorized and duties mandated, that you could have both optional and non-optional activities within the list. So I think if you use the word contained, you could just add those optional activities back into the list along with the list of required activities. And that may be the best approach because then we've got the full list of things that we both must do and can do within that list. Does that make sense to you, Lavisa?
That makes sense, yes. Yeah, so it sounds like sort of two different options. We could do mandated and only do our requirements, or we could do contained and have a mixed list.
Yeah, and I was just hearing Sarah say it might be useful to have both, and I don't disagree with that as long as we, to me, what's most important is having the things that we must do be in the list, and those were missing. So just making sure those are in was what I cared about. The optional ones, I'm fine including them. They may end up being important if we do in fact need a charter change. So that's fine to put that back in the list, I think, with that use of the word contained.
Understood. Thanks. Sophia, would love to hear from you.
Oh, I think that her hand might just be
Oh,
up still.
was your hand still raised from before, Sophia?
I saw Sarah's hand going up and down, so I'm unclear if you're.
I just wanted to say, echo Catherine's thoughts that if you don't include specifically list out the charter change or writing a written report, you still can do that. There's nothing to stop you from it. It is in the, you do have that option. So she's right that you can just include the ones that you must do.
Samir, any other comments? I will say I have a slight preference for only including the things that we must do, but only slight. Thoughts from the group about which way we want to go with this?
I saw Jason's hand.
It's a good aesthetic line to keep, that the bylaws should only have things we must do, and everything else should be out, because those should all be options that we hold available for the future. And or put in this other document, this operating document.
I see lots of consensus there, and I see Sarah's hand again. Oh,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to have my hand still up.
okay, thank you. Sophia, your hand. Oh, no. Okay. Hard to tell.
Can we see the gallery view to judge consensus? Thumbs up if you like this, like these changes. I'm seeing everybody.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you, Catherine. There's more work of Catherine's below, so we'll see. We're going to get to know her.
Yes, I'm sorry, my background is showing here.
I also want to put out for when we are in screen share mode, there's actually a little cursor on the side that you can slide back and forth to make it bigger or smaller, where you can get into gallery view on your own easier. It just to kind of help with that if you are doing the text at the same time and still want to get consensus if people can't see. And of course, I will be here helping you with that. Zoe?
I just want to see if Samir could add a note or a comment to the two optional, like 3 and 4 in the original, just as like a notation that we might add those to a working document later.
Good.
And ask if we say something along those lines in the future, if you could add a comment, that would be really amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, thank you so much, Ayamide, for that Zoom tip, because I just tried it and it's
awesome.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, yeah. Drag the little thing out, and then I went up to the top view, side by side gallery.
Yep.
Yeah, great.
Now, how does that affect how the recording looks, or
Nothing.
our participants? They can't see that, so
no, that's all for you.
So sometimes we will want to do that in order to allow the fuller audience and the future audience to know, yes, we're all nodding our heads,
Yes.
twinkling
yes.
our fingers. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Let's move down.
All right, so I will read this into the record, as Dan mentioned. We should be doing that. C, Sponsor Bureau, Community Safety Division, Office of Management and Finance. DC, SD, Liaison Title. Sorry, wait. Am I reading the right thing? Analyst, Community Safety Division, Office of Management and Finance. He advises City Council. Dan?
Right, so on the second item where it says CSD, I mean, it doesn't parenthetically say that CSD is there's acronym for Community Safety Division. I had written staff in there. I'm not sure why it got deleted. It got deleted later in the document. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time discussing this, but I really felt like just saying staff is much clearer to people who aren't going to be following all these acronyms. So I'd prefer to just leave it as staff.
Thoughts, feelings? I see a thumbs up from Zoe. Catherine, thumbs up.
Debbie, thumbs up. CMOB, everyone looks like we're getting consensus.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. Thanks, Dan, for that clarification. All right, can we go back to the document? Thanks, we'll be doing a lot of flipping back and forth today. All right. A, city role. All right, as written. The city, as written, the city will provide, I guess I'm a little confused here, what it says right now.
The proposal is that the reading should be, the city will provide staff and contractors to assist the commission.
Okay. The city will provide staff and contractors, I see, okay, to assist the commission with technical support, internal and external communication, logistics and administration, and to provide advice to the commission as requested. So this was deleting a project manager, facilitators, and other staff, and adding just staff and contractors.
Just simplifying language. Thumbs up.
For brevity.
I see consensus.
Back and forth. Yep. Sounds good. I see a lot of thumbs. All right. All right. Fantastic. Thanks. Thanks. Let's turn back. Okay. Oh, thank you very much.
And I'll explain item 2 a little bit. Independent of each other, Catherine and Dan had the same idea. So when I typed in KM and KH, that indicates both Catherine and Dan said the same thing. So we're getting in sync.
KM and DH, right?
Right.
Okay.
It's a new team. It's a subcommittee. We're gonna have them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have editing happening in real time here. All right, so sorry, I'm having a little trouble seeing where this begins.
Let me try to read it.
Sure, go ahead.
Commission staff provided by the city will assist the commission in performing its duties, comma, issue public notice of all meetings, comma, etc.
I see, okay. So, yeah, so changing from the city will.
Commission staff provided by the city will.
Commission staff will provide public notice.
Right, there's an extra words in there right now.
Got it. Will assist the commission in performing its duties, issue public notice. So this is describing what the commission staff will do.
Right.
Issue public notice to all meetings, post materials to a web page, including meeting summaries that outline the issues discussed. and decisions made by the commission. Is that where that would end?
I hope they gave us a typing test. Boy, he's good.
He does it all. All right, any thoughts? Do we want to, I think this
I see Zoe's thumbs are up.
relatively non-controversial. Can we flip back real quick? Yeah, we can see. Yep, yeah,
I see consensus.
I see consensus. Great, wonderful. Moving and grooving. All right. Number 3 under city role. Oh, you know what? Give Samir a moment on this. Thank you so much, Samir.
I also want to give y'all a time check too.
Mhm.
We're at like 1:56, and I know that we're gonna need to take a bio break for people, or we'll check to see what people would like to do.
When do you want to do that? I made it.
That's actually, I'm gonna throw it back at to y'all because you're the ones that are doing all this hard work. As far as people's biological bodies, of course, biological, but anyway, what we could do it within the next 15 minutes. Then it'd put us at like 1:15. Oh, excuse me, 2:15. Sorry, can't tell time.
Okay.
Do people feel good about that? So in about 15 minutes?
I was gonna check with the ASLs, see what they needed.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we do need to take a break for the ASLs.
Yes, as far as them switching.
It's not a question of whether we do or not.
No, it's about when.
I think 15 minutes.
They're good.
We can get through this section, and I'm thinking possibly frequency of meetings is a very short section, and we can see where we're at around there. But I think that seems reasonable.
And I think I got a consensus from ASL. Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much. All right. Back to part 3, number 3 under city role. So the proposal is to add, let's see, okay, so the current language is in accordance with the commission's community standards. Facilitators will facilitate meetings to ensure a safe and welcome environment where all commissioners can participate and conduct meetings in a manner to foster collaborative decision-making and consensus building. The facilitators will not act as an advocate for any issue, individual, or interest group. And the proposal from Catherine is to add in accordance with the commission's community standards to the beginning of this paragraph.
Debbie, your hand is up.
Yeah, I have a question about this. So, other public committee meetings that I've gone to, sometimes they decide to kind of run their own meetings, of course, sort of like you are doing today, but Lavisa and Jason. But I just was curious about whether this language where it says will means that if the leadership of the commission and the commission itself decides it wants to kind of lead its own meetings, will that be allowed if that's what we decide we want to do? Which doesn't mean that the facilitators won't be on the sidelines, helping to step in if we need some smoothing out or whatever. But so that was something that I picked up when I read the word will in there.
I see spirit fingers from Dan. Sophia, you had a question?
It's not really a question, but it's just, I think I'm wanting to make sure your concern is, Debbie, is it this concern is that you will and you would like to not have a facilitator at a meeting?
Yeah, I just was curious. I mean, like I said, I've gone to a number of these different kind of public appointed boards and commissions, and sometimes for a while they'll have like a facilitator that sort of runs the show, and then eventually the board itself decides no, they would rather kind of be the front, the face of the commission by leading it. And I mean, I think I see Jason maybe nodding his head. He's maybe has observed the same thing. And so I just wanted to make sure that if we at some point decided that we wanted our leadership to be the kind of the face of running the meetings, if this language would allow us to make that decision.
Okay. My thought is that I don't see the facilitators as being the face of the meeting. That's just my view. I do see Jason and Lovisa as being the ones who are the face. I've used facilitators in my work, and it's just one of those ways that it keeps. It's an outside person who has no real interest in what we're doing, but the only interest they have is making sure we get it done and get it done smoothly. And so that's just the way I see it. I don't know with the will part, I don't have any real, I don't know what, I would say that it's best for us to do it all the time. It's so easy to get into yourself and not be able to see the forest for the trees. And it's always nice to have someone outside helping to keep us on track. And also to make sure that we get the points done that we're saying that we're going to get done. That's just my thoughts. Maybe we could ask Samir about the always portion.
I'm actually going to kick that to Sarah Ames if she has a thought about what the language would specify either way. Right now, it doesn't. I don't know.
Will does seem to imply a universality of, all the meetings will be facilitated. It's not quite as, strong as shall, but, this might be a case where you can dodge the question by strategic use of the passive voice, saying meetings will be facilitated to ensure a safe and welcome environment. That would leave room for the commission to decide, whether Jason and Lovisa could, facilitate and lead the meetings themselves. But I think, either way.
Zoe, you also had your hand up. Thanks, Sarah.
So I actually do like having like the active voice of having facilitators. And I think that I totally hear the concern. I have seen meetings too where facilitators end up leading the meetings. I don't feel like that's the case here. And I think the language is specific enough in that the facilitators will facilitate meetings as opposed to lead them. For me, that's specific enough to assuage concerns that I might have. And I think also it implies a specific set of duties that I think we actually need to talk about that later because the facilitator section was proposed to be cut. But I think with the facilitator section, this makes a lot of sense because it outlines specifically what the facilitators are responsible for. And that is different than what the co-chairs are responsible for. And it's specifically things like, calling on people to speak and like things that we can discuss in detail later. But I'd like this language.
I would also like to add that, the facilitators are there to help the co-chairs, and there is a lot of work that the co-chairs have to do. And I really appreciate working with the facilitators, getting the meeting together, making sure we make things smoothly. I mean, it's just a big help, honestly. That's just the way I see it. I think I would be more discombobulated if I didn't have the facilitators helping out. I just don't see anything negative about a facilitator in a meeting. And I just think that they're, if you think of it as someone that's there to help you get things together and keep an eye on things that you can't focus in on, so that you can focus on the work at hand. That's just my opinion. I'll let the rest of you guys make your comments.
I saw Jason and then downtown.
So Dan has a text in the chat where he suggests a language. Dan, maybe you want to say this, but I'll vote for it. Also, this document or this item may be one that we would put in the bin of operating text rather than bylaws. It's not necessary for our bylaws, but it would, if it were the bylaws, bind us to always having a facilitator facilitate each meeting. No co-chairs could independently manage a meeting.
If I may, I don't see again, I'll just say I don't see the facilitators as running the meeting. I just see them facilitating, and maybe it's just the way maybe we're saying the same thing and not understanding, but I just wanted to make that comment. I just don't see them as running it. I see them as facilitating it, which is a different role in my opinion.
I'm grateful for their help. I just think there may be a point in time in the future, not today, where things might be different.
I saw Dan's hand. And are there any other comments?
Thank you. Yes. So I realize this is under this section of the city's role. So my proposed language about the person or people facilitating the meeting doesn't apply to commissioners then. So I think rather we should say facilitators will act to ensure a safe and welcoming environment. Take out the facilitate meetings part. And that way we get rid of that question of who's running the meeting and just say that the facilities, they can be there. And if there's something that's going wrong where the safe and welcoming environment isn't being provided, that's where we need their assistance. So that's my proposed solution, is to change, just to get rid of the words facilitate meetings too.
Zoe, thank you, Dan.
I have an alternate proposal to change the language. So in accordance with the commission's community standards and at their discretion, facilitators will facilitate meetings to ensure, et cetera, et cetera. And so that way, if we decide in the future that facilitators are not serving their purpose, then we are able to change this and remove their facilitation.
Could you say that again a little slower, though?
Yes, in accordance with the Commission's community standards and at their discretion, facilitators will facilitate meetings. I'm going to go back to my document to ensure a safe and welcome environment. Yeah.
So when you say their discretion, the Commission's discretion?
So in accordance with so we could be even more explicit, in accordance with the Commission's community standards and at the Commission's discretion, facilitators will facilitate meetings.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is your hand still up? Sophia, did you have something to say?
I was, but after her talking a little more, I wanted to read it again because I wanted to make sure that word at the somebody's discretion was not in there. That's all. Because my thought was if we put that in there, then we'd have to go into saying when discretion can be used and when it could not be used and how it could be used. So if that word's not in there, which I don't see it, I think I'm fine. I'll just have to read it again I'll listen for everybody else's comments. Okay, I'm sorry, I just saw it again. Yeah, the discretion is still there. I just, when you put the word indiscretion in my mind, it leaves a big opening that is up for debate. And I'm not sure how that would go. So any other comments on that?
Debbie?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of like that. I mean, I think leaving discretion in, because I do think that way, I mean, I don't think anybody's gonna say we don't need facilitators right now, but you know, as Jason pointed out, I mean, maybe 6 months from now, we want to do things a little bit differently. And then the commission as a whole can make that decision, or perhaps the commission will delegate that decision to whoever our leadership team is at the time. But it just leaves, it doesn't tie us to something that, you know, again, and this is kind of just based on my observation of a lot of different boards and commissions where they, you know, sometimes they have facilitators, sometimes they don't, and sometimes they switch back and forth depending upon where things stand with their leadership at the time, or it just what kind of meeting they're going to have. And so this kind of gives us the latitude to decide when we actually need more active facilitation and when not.
I see Zoe's hand.
To address Sophia's the concerns about the use of the word discretion, perhaps we can add a footnote to refer to the operating document and define discretion as a proposal that is passed by 60% of the commission to make a change to the role of the facilitator. And that way that loophole is limited.
Visa.
I really like what Zoe just said about maybe referring, like, for further reference about what discretion means. I like it because I think the question, part of what we've been discussing has been, is this language flexible enough for us to keep it and design our meetings going forward for the next year and a half. And I do think keeping the word discretion adds flexibility.
Sophia, I believe, are you still wanting to hear more comments or?
Well, I just had a question. When would a facilitator be a bad thing for the group? My question is, like, what is the concern with not having a facilitator, or wanting to not have a facilitator? I'm trying to see what the issue might be if you have one. What is the concern of having a facilitator at any point? I mean, what is the concern of the group? I'm just trying to figure out what would be a bad, when would it be bad to have a facilitator is my concern, my question, rather.
Debbie?
So oh, wait a minute. It's on. Okay. I attended a lot of the Community Oversight Advisory Board committee meetings, and they had a professional running the meetings. And it was just a terrible experience for some reason. I mean, it was just, who knows what the chemistry was in that particular setting, but it didn't work out well. And eventually the person resigned, and they had the COAB members, actually, they started running their own meeting. And that seemed to kind of bring the temperature down in the room. And I'm not anticipating that's going to happen in our case, but I guess after sitting through those, I feel like it's a good idea not to lock ourselves into something if, say, months from now, we find that it's not working, we can make some adjustments based on, you know, what we're experiencing and how we think there might be a better way to make things like run smoothly and keep the temperature down in the room. So it's really kind of, I think, probably based on my experience of attending those meetings. I mean, it was so bad they used to have to bring the police in and take people away. I mean, it was awful. So that's, I'm not worried that this is going to happen with this group, but I just, like, after watching that, I just think, oh, it's good for us to be able to adjust if we need to. And so when I saw the word will, I thought, you know, if it turns out it's a bad scene, we want to be able to adjust accordingly.
Angie?
Thank you for sharing that story, Debbie. I appreciate that. I appreciate your experience a lot and helping us to try to use your experience in forming this. The one concern I do have related to this kind of goes back to what Sophia was saying, in that we are spending the time right now to try to do this as perfectly as possible. And I just don't want to leave too much in the bylaws. So we have to come back and it's not clear, and it takes us even more time in the future. So that's just my one piece of my one little piece that I wanted to put in there. But I'm not saying that I'm not saying that I approve or disapprove of keeping the wording it is the way it is now. I just want to make sure that we keep it as clear as possible, so when we do go back to it, it can be quick and seamless. So thank you.
Sophia, and then I think we should probably go into some sort of break. And if we need to come back to this subject, we can, or put it in a.
All right. I just wanted to say I appreciate your comment, Debbie, because my concern is when someone when someone has some concern, I want to know the root of it, because that gives us a whole lot more understanding on what the possibilities are. And I agree, I would not like that that situation. So considering the language that we have, I'm adding to what Zoe put on there, maybe trying to add to that, saying something to the effect, may I ask, Debbie, if there was a different facilitator, do you think it would have worked? Or if it was just that particular person?
Possibly. It sort of felt like that people in the room, the members of the public who attended were particularly resistant to the idea of authority. And I think they saw the paid leader of that, who was the person who ran those meetings, being the voice of authority, where once just the oversight board members who were community members were running the meeting, I felt like they were sort of felt more relaxed and less like they had, a voice of authority telling them what to do. And but that just was my sense. I mean, it would really definitely was a difference once they, changed how the meetings were being run. And again, I'm not suggesting, I think, boy, if people who are doing some of the organizational stuff around our group are finding facilitators to be helpful, I mean, we definitely need to keep that there, because we all need all the help we can get. And right now, I just think everything's, it's really, really nice to have people help running the meetings, and it's great. And I'm just thinking that we might be like a different board, like other boards and commissions I've seen, where they decide that they want to really just sort of facilitate the meeting. It doesn't mean they don't need a lot of behind the scenes help and advice and everything else that facilitators provide.
Okay, we can go to break. I don't think we need to solve this at this moment. So let's just have our break, and then we'll come back, and hopefully it'll just be really short. My thought is maybe a little bit of language to suggest, maybe Debbie, if you find something in your mind as you're on your break, to say, could we able to change this, or vote on the type of facilitator? I don't know. We'll just come back after the break when our minds are a little fresher, and we'll talk about it for a short period and move on. How's
We have a
that?
person with his hand up.
Yes, I see that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I see that, Jason. Thank you. Dan, I see that in the comments that you think that you have a solution. Do you think that for folks would be able to have a break and then you can come back with that solution? Or do you feel like that this would be very quick?
Sure, but let's do the break.
Okay. Thank you. Is everybody okay with that? Or do folks want to continue the discussion? That's also the other question. I think people want a break. So thank you, Dan, for holding your comments. And we'll see in about 10 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back. So to kind of continue on or possibly end this portion of our conversation, I see, Dan, you had a possible solution.
Right. My proposal, and I'm not sure if this makes a really long sentence. It's basically the same length. But so, in accordance with the Commission's community standards, when facilitators, when facilitating meetings, facilitators will ensure a safe and welcome environment. So basically, it's just moving a couple of words around. So, and adding the word when. So is that clear enough? So when facilitating meetings, facilitators will ensure a safe and welcoming environment. And that kind of captures the idea that that's what their role is, but we don't necessarily always have to have them, and we can have that discussion if we come upon it. And I just want to echo Commissioner Iona's observations from the Community Oversight Advisory Board. I went to those meetings too, and that a lot of those issues are resolved by the second half of this that we haven't talked about yet. That the facilitators will not act as an advocate for any issue, individual, or interest group. I think that's a really important thing to have here, and I'm glad that it's in there. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from anybody else that might? Debbie?
So I just put something in the chat that maybe, I don't know, I tried rewriting it. Because instead I put in that the facilitators will assist the commission in doing all of those things. And that way, if the commission decides that they want the facilitators to do absolutely everything, that's how it is. And if the commission, our leadership decides that at this meeting, we want to be the ones who, kind of are the leaders of running the meeting, and not next month. So it's more of a partnership. I mean, not that it isn't a partnership right now, but changing that language makes it seem a little bit more permissive. And I did it pretty fast, so it probably could be said better if we decide we wanted to try that route.
Sophia?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to read over what she did and what Dan did at the same time, and now I'm like all discombobulated because I'm trying to meet them both and see if what I thought was a comment may or may not be necessary. So I'm reading yours in the box. In accordance with the Commission's community standards, facilitators will assist the Commission in a way that ensures meetings that are conducted in a manner that fosters collaborative decision-making and consensus building, and that they provide a safe and welcoming environment. I do like that, Debbie. I like that.
Well, thank you.
not that I don't like yours, Dan, because I do like yours too. When you're saying when facilitating a meeting, that's basically what Debbie is saying, right?
Yes.
But I do like, I think you guys are saying the same thing, but I like the way you said it better, Debbie. And that's just a preference, not that it's good or bad. Because in some ways, I do think that, I don't know if the state attorney is here, but I do think we still have to say will. And that's kind of where I'm liking yours, Debbie, because we have that in there and it's not in such a way that I think it's a nicer way of saying will. So I'll just listen for the rest of the group's comments.
Does anyone else have any comments? Do people agree with the Debbie's statement? Okay.
Looking for consensus for Debbie's changes. Yes, no.
So, I see lots of thumbs up. What about you, Jason? Okay.
Moving on. We have just accomplished the first section of this bylaws. We have 10 more to go today in the next 25 minutes, and we have not met any of the controversial items yet. So moving into item 2, frequency of meetings. And Catherine has a small change.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is just sort of a technical change. If we're talking about how we're conducting our meetings, I think we need to indicate that they're being conducted in accordance with the public meeting laws. So that's just sort of a non-substantive change, I would say. Later on in the document, we talk about what that means. So that was the suggestion.
Can I proceed to consensus, seek consensus for this? Thank you. I see consensus. In the second item, Dan throughout the document has changed the term OMF, the original term, to staff. Any objection to this change? Looking for consensus? Thank you. I see consensus. So throughout the document, we'll change OMF to staff. We're going to do it. "22 minutes.
Jason, may I suggest that that you move on to officers and subcommittees, since you don't necessarily have to do it in order, the list?
Yes, I think that would be wise to move directly there at this point.
Yeah.
And Lavisa, do you agree?
I agree.
Thank you. If we can bring that up, that is a more complicated section where we have two difference of opinions. And before we go into the meat of this, the difference of opinions, I think, is the co-chairs versus chair and vice chair. And I asked Dan and Zoe to both speak on this. Are you guys ready to speak on this for a moment?
Sure.
Zoe, would you go first?
I apologize if this was talked about before, but I think I am in favor of using the terminology co-chairs as opposed to chair and vice chair, just in an effort to have as much horizontal power structure as possible. I am not very committed to it if anyone has a really excellent reason to have a chair and a vice chair, but I think co-chairs makes a lot of sense as far as like making the power structure as horizontal as possible.
Thanks, Zoe. Dan?
Yes, thank you, Chair Renaud, or Co-Chair Renaud in this case. Yeah, well, so I've just experienced a lot of organizations where you do share power, but then you have people who are given titles just to make it clear when you're trying to deal with the outside world, what's going on. I think part of the issue that I'm worried about is that when we try to figure out, a spokesperson or somebody tries to figure out who to talk to, that it's going to be confusing. It's also going to put a burden on both the co-chairs to always be involved in any decision that has to be made, which will be very few. I mean, I agree with horizontal. I mean, we're trying to work on consensus anyway. So I'm not really seeing a lot of authority being put into the chair. I'm just seeing them as a figurehead that can relay between the commission and the rest of the world. And it makes it clearer to people who that person's going to be when you do it that way. And also, for anybody who's been in families that have two parents or more, a lot of times what will happen is you go to one parent and they say one thing and the other parent says another thing. And I think that if you've ever experienced that in an organization where like the chair is not available and then the co-chair makes a decision in their absence that was not what the chair wanted, that becomes an internal problem. But if we have a real clear line of communication like that, then we can set up, perhaps in this other document we haven't really decided to do, the way that if you need to ask the chair to do something, if they don't respond in a certain amount of time, that you can go to the co-chair or the vice chair, sorry, for the answer that you are needing. I just think having a clear line of communication is really important, especially when I feel like we're very limited in how we can communicate between meetings and not everybody's reading their emails all the time. That's my explanation. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. I thought this would also be an excellent time to hear from our facilitators who are professionals and can comment with some expertise on co-chair versus chair, vice chair structures.
Yes, Christine, I'll ask you to go first since I have been using my voice a lot more than everybody else in this regard.
Sure. It's wonderful to be here today, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jason, for inviting me in. There is an advantage to having one person. I think it is around speed and efficiency that can help the group move forward sometimes. And so that's one advantage to having one chair. Aimide, your thoughts about having co-chairs?
I would say the advantage of having co-chairs is to create, again, more horizontal consensus. And if you have it in an operational document of how that actually looks, you would also remove the dialogue of one co-chair, like the parental authoritarian issue that you brought up, Jason, as far as like one person having one decision, one person having another decision, and it being kind of a confusion with the group. Also, in terms of having co-chairs, just the fact that this is a community-focused commission, and we're trying to get like the opinion of not only the people that are here, but a representation of the community, having more perspectives in leadership, I think is also, or in my experience in being in other meetings, it gives more perspectives and more of the ability to show that there's a multiple levels of perspective. And then I also am curious about what other people in this commission think, besides the folks that are talking about it or bringing it up. What other folks might think besides Zoe and Dan.
You have another expert visiting us in the
Yes.
room.
And I was going to call on her as well.
Thank you. Please do. Candace,
Hello.
are you here?
Yeah, she's here.
Yes.
Tell us, give us your wisdom, chair or co-chair?
Okay, so I think that the arguments everybody has made are valid. And for me, I would throw the question back on this group as far as how you envision this work happening. And I feel like the discussion you all have been having around the facilitator was really relevant to this question of chair or of co-chair or vice chair. From my experience on 2 different commissions, so on the Citizen Review Committee, we do have a chair and vice chair structure. I think with that, it is important to have one chair, because in that situation where I'm needing to lead the meeting through appeals and needing to have this one voice for, the succinctness, if you will, of the work, I think that the chair vice chair structure works a little bit better. In the end, in both of these situations, you're really like working like co-chairs. You're working like partners no matter what. But it does delineate a little bit more that, like, I'm the one that's running the meetings. I'm the one that's, taking the lead of the direction of the group. And when I'm not able to be at a meeting, for example, the vice chair steps up. So that's kind of how that works out on the CRC. On the other CRC I'm on, the Charter Review Commission, we've been doing it kind of a lot of different ways that are unique, I think, but what I had doubts in the beginning, and I feel like as we've been a year in, I feel it works. So what we've been doing is we actually did co-chair rotations. So this is for the whole commission, right? We parsed it out, and it's not a perfect term. For example, the first term, the very first co-chairs had like a month and a half, and they were in charge of getting everything off the ground. And then you had the co-chairs that were helping get the committees off the ground. And then you had the co-chairs that, you know what I mean? Like we have like different cycles, if you will. So that's how we've approached the larger commission. And then when we created our subcommittees, those have co-chairs as well, but those co-chairs don't rotate. And we're actually phasing out our committees anyway. And I imagine that's going to be similar for you all too. At some point, the bylaws committee is not necessarily going to need to be meeting. So you'll phase this out and replace it with some other area that you all are going to study. I think in that situation, when I haven't been the co-chair of the larger commission, but I am the co-chair of the form of government committee. And I think the way that relationship is with Andrew, my co-chair, is that we're both leading the meeting. So the dynamic we're creating is that it's expected that people come to both of us for information. We tag team. So we say, we're going to start calling the members of our committee to get temperature checks on this issue. We go halvesies on the list of people. When we're delegating responsibilities for how to lead the meeting, we do half and half. And honestly, it's nice because like I was not feeling well one day in December, and my co-chair was like, no, I got you. I'll take over your section, right? So it definitely is a different dynamic because it feels like it's much more obvious that we're doing everything together, like we're doing everything half and half. Whereas on the CRC, I'm taking the lead and the vice chair steps in when I can't take the lead. So that's the kind of the different dynamics that I see. As far as your commission, I mean, because you all are a commission that are creating what will eventually become the oversight board, I would lean on the side of co-chairs because I think that partnership is just going to make it easier on you all. This is also like the Charter Review Commission is something that all eyes are on us. And so sharing that like responsibility where I can go to my co-chair Andrew and be like, he is just as capable, to go speak on behalf of form of government stuff. Whereas that dynamic is a little different on the citizen review committee, where I do feel like I'm the one that needs to speak up. I'm the one that needs to take all the media calls. So I would recommend for you all that your whole commission has co-chairs. I don't think you need to do the rotation thing. I mean, it's an interesting concept, and honestly, I think it's worked for us, but that's a whole other layer that you all can discuss. But I would recommend that what you all create is a chair and vice chair situation. Because again, I think the final oversight board, the one that's actually going to start doing that work, I see it needing that kind of dynamic that I have on the citizen review committee. So I would recommend having that, but I recommend you all having co-chairs. So that's my 2 cents. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, Candace. I also
Thanks,
saw that
Candace.
Angie's hand was up as well.
Thank you. I just had a quick question for Candace. I'm sorry, my internet is kind of going on and off. That's why I turned off my camera, because
Yep.
it's a little bit more stable with the camera off. But Candace, do you use, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Candace, are you using facilitators on those in those commissions that you are on, that you have vice chairs and co-chairs? Because it seems like a lot of those roles that you were talking about are taken, we are utilizing facilitators. Thank you so much, facilitators that are here. I really appreciate it, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up. I did want to touch on that. So on the citizen review committee, the answer is no. And I think is because that's a committee that has been long-standing for years. And maybe when it first started, it had facilitators to get off the ground, but it makes sense that the actual commission members have that. I see Debbie shaking her head, so maybe it didn't. So that we don't have facilitators. On the facilitator for charter, we had a lot of these questions that I'm hearing you all talk about. I think you should definitely have flexibility in your bylaws to not make it so that you always have to have facilitators, because we eventually phase them out. We definitely needed them at the beginning, especially in helping us do like the bylaw stuff and the team building stuff. That way, all of the commissioners felt like we could participate fully and not have to lead the meeting. And then once we kind of got our feet under us and started to get into the work, having a facilitator didn't feel as necessary, because we knew what we were talking about. We knew how to lead the discussion. And every now and then we will bring them back if we need more team building type things or whatever, but we eventually phase them out, and I could see that happening with you all as well. And I think it'd be good for the members of the committee to lead the discussion, because it is a different dynamic. When you're the chair, even if you're a facilitator and you're not technically a member, you're not a chair, there's a power dynamic there. And I think that power should lie within the commission members. So I think you should work to phase them out, but you should definitely, this is the time to have them in these first couple of months. So keep your language flexible so that you can. And then of course, bring them in if you need it. Like we have them on deck if we need them to come in, and because we all want to be, the commissioners all want to have the ability to participate without being the facilitator. So that's how we've approached it on the charter.
Thank you, Candace. Seema, obviously you snapping your finger. Do you want to make any comments? We haven't heard your voice today.
I just love Candace Savlos, and I'm very grateful for her presence and her amazing feedback. It's ideas that I've been in the balance of. I've not necessarily had an opinion one or the other, and it's good to hear from experience.
Thank you. Love you too, Seema.
Okay. Oh, Sophia, your hand is up. And we have 6 minutes. Just want to
Okay,
put that
sorry,
out.
all right. Just with Angie, she's still here? Oh, she's gone.
Oh, I think, no, she's here. Angie's here.
Okay. Anyway, I was gonna talk about the role of co-chairs between Angie and myself, and I will say it's worked out really well with us. I mean, I let her tell it from her side of view, But, you know, there's just times when, you know, we all have full-time jobs. Some of us have children, and it gets to really, sometimes you need somebody there and that you know is going to help you out. And she has some strengths that I don't have, and I really rely on that. And I give her full reign with those. But we have this understanding with each other. I guess you're going to use the parent thing. You know, we're sort of a couple in a way, with our strengths and weaknesses, and you know, we're learning them as we move along together. But it's really nice to have her head, you know, and her eyes, because there's a lot of things that I don't see, or I don't, I won't say I don't get, but you know, she can give me a better understanding of. And I'm just to the thought of, you know, if you have co-chairs that are really going to work together, it can come out to be a very good thing. And then I've been sick off and on, and I've been traveling and putting all that responsibility on one person when they have other things to do. Like I had to travel out of town. I got stuck in the snowstorm. I mean, if it was just me, you know, it was just a lot of pressure for me to make a decision in the middle of all of that. And I felt very comfortable with Angie taking over whenever I wasn't around. So I guess there's sort of an understanding when you're a co-chair that you'll work together. But I'll let Angie speak to that since we only have a few minutes.
I'm sorry, and I don't want to sway anybody's decision too much either way, but I completely 100% agree with Sophia in the co-chair structure right now. And maybe it's just because we do seem to work together in a yin and yang way very well. And I feel like I got really lucky being a co-chair with her, because I do feel like where my weaknesses are, her strengths are, and vice versa. And being the chair of this committee, I know it's a lot. It's a lot. And we are, you know, we all want to do this work, and it's really important work, but it's also volunteer work. So, so it's just a lot. And I can't imagine doing all of this work without the facilitators and Samir and Sophia, especially. That would be a lot. So, and who knows, in the future, it might, as Candace said, that, you know, we might morph into something different in a couple of months. But right now, I can't imagine being a chair of this entire thing without Sophia. So I definitely am a proponent of doing that, the co-chair piece of it. And I don't know, I think it's kind of the nature of this commission also, is that, you know, we are trying to be community led and having everybody's voices heard. And I feel like the co-chair piece of it really helps with that. So anyway, my 2 cents. Thank you. And thank you, Sophia, and everybody else that does all this work, because it's a lot.
Thank you, Angie. I just want to bring us back to the fact that we are at clock time of 2:58. I know that we wanted to do some public comment, and I figured this would be a good time to figure out what our parking lot items will be for the next meeting. And we can definitely go over, if necessary, about like 10 minutes or so, just to kind of put that out there for folks. So any comments, thoughts? Oh, Zoe.
I don't know if you guys discussed this at the prior meetings, so apologies if you already did, but I was curious about the structure of electing the chairs. Candace, I'm grateful for the experience that you shared, because one of the things that came up for me when I was reading the section was like whether or not we could do rotating co-chairs of the commission in an effort to try and empower people who feel like maybe they want that experience or something like that. I know that time is of the essence, and that a concern would be that switching chairs or co-chairs could slow down the process. But yeah, my organizing background comes much more from a place of like flexibility as far as who's leading discussions, and that can often be very useful.
Thank you, Lavisa, and then Dan.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. I'm just looking at the agenda versus, what we were able to get through today, and we had some really great discussions, some really important discussions, and I guess I'm noticing, it's like we had sort of A through F, right, on our agenda of what we were thinking we might be able to get through, and we got through A. So B, C, D, E, F are still things that we need to discuss at future meetings. And I guess that the thing that I'm thinking about is I guess I want to put forward just the possibility that we might need to have a lot more of these meetings, these bylaw meetings, than we initially thought, especially if we, there's just so much important conversation that we cannot have via email. We must have it in, this public forum. And so, not making any really super specific things, but just sort of kind of putting that on folks' radar and just asking people, how would you feel about trying to meet more frequently in order to get through the bylaws documents? Or does anybody have any great ideas for other legal ways for us to, move forward and get through everything?
Dan?
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to go back to the kind of short and maybe discombobulated statement I made about the chair and vice chair structure. That what I'm hearing is that a lot of work is done where the vice chair or the co-chair steps in to help when one person can't do it. But that is true for our vice chair too. We can establish how they function together in this document or another document to say that they work as a team. I'm just saying, in terms of making it clear to people who don't understand this, because we're in a hierarchical society, which I don't necessarily like either, makes it clearer just to have their names be chair and vice chair, even if they functionally are co-chairs. So I just want people to think about that. And in terms of getting through the agenda, yeah, well, I don't know how to fix that, but it really, I'm finding this whole inability to communicate between meetings very frustrating. And I hope there's something we can do to schedule more meetings in a shorter time period to get this finished. Thank you.
Jason, Sophia.
Following up on Lavisa's point, I'd like to put it to the group that we initiate weekly meetings at this point to be able to get through these bylaws in a timely way. We expected today to get through the entirety of this document, and we got through a minor portion of it.
So I'm hearing the possibility of utilizing these things for the parking lot. Lavisa.
Sure. I just also wanted to raise the possibility. I was like, if we had like an 8-hour-long meeting, we might be able to get through this entire document. I don't think anybody necessarily, no one wants to have an 8-hour-long meeting. But also, I agree with Jason about the possibility of going to weekly meetings. Seems like a good idea to me, and or possibly increasing the length of a meeting. And I'm so sorry, everyone, for saying that. I know that's not anybody's first option, probably, but realistically, it's so hard to get everybody together into one room. So it might make sense to try to make the most of it when we can.
I just want to also remind folks that we did promise public comment. So I see that Dan's hands up, Zoe's hands up. And I'm just curious if we could go for public comment first. Would you mind holding your questions or comments? Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see here. Forgive me, I'm not used to using this particular function, so. Oh, okay, let's see. I guess there was just one. Sorry, I'm getting. Sorry, Samir, I can't see people's hands raised, so.
If any member of the public would like to give a public comment, the group had agreed in a previous meeting to give 90 seconds to anyone who would like to give a public comment on the topics under discussion at the meeting, so bylaws and other internal processes. You can raise your hand using the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen. And then once your name is called, just pause about 5 seconds while you get called up. So if you go to participants and then you click over to attendees is where you'd see those. And it looks like Michelle's first, yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'd just like to thank you all for allowing the public to come to your meetings and to listen in. But I want to mention that the link you provided on your most current email does not work.
Which
So
link
if
is
you
that,
could check
Rochelle?
that out, I'd appreciate it. Pardon?
Which link is that?
The link to get into this meeting. I could not get into the meeting with the link provided by the email from PAC. I had to get it through an email provided by Dan.
I did try that one also, and it didn't work. So I agree.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Rochelle.
Thank you. Okay, I don't think there's any other public comment at this time. Did we want to finish out with the questions or comments raised and then adjourn? Dan, your hand was raised.
Well, I had thought at a previous meeting, we had discussion about coming to consensus on the voting procedures so that then we could make it easier to make decisions and present that to the full commission so that we could vote on things even if we never finished getting through the bylaws. And I wouldn't mind having a 3 or 4 hour meeting to get through more of this if that works for everybody. So I'm hoping that we can figure out a way to get that decision-making process decided on, if nothing else, to get that affirmed by the whole commission so that the rest of the bylaws can fall in place after that if need be.
Thank you, Dan. Just to kind of throw in public comment for one moment, I'm sorry. Jasmine said that the passcode worked for her. That she had to manually enter the code and password. So I guess we'll just figure out as a staff, we'll figure that out for y'all, make it easier. And then Zoe.
I like Dan's suggestion of passing the voting portion of this onto the commission as quickly as possible. And also I'm throwing it out there, and I can't believe I'm throwing it out there, but like we could potentially meet more than once a week until the bylaws committee is done with its work. I'm also down to meet for longer with the caveat that obviously my time is a little different than everyone else's.
Thank you, Zoe. Christine.
I just wanted to read in about Candace's comment in the Q&A. Is that all right?
Yes, please do that.
One last thing to mention about rotating co-chairs, because the work you all are doing is under a microscope, having multiple people leading the commission makes it so that media and outsiders don't associate the whole commission and its work with just 1 or 2 voices. For Charter Commission, it was helpful. It helped us really share the power of leadership while allowing for us to spread out the personalities. And by making it co-chairs instead of vice chair, it empowers each chair to feel like a leader, which that dynamic is stifled when it's a vice chair. Thanks all and best of luck. Thank you.
So the time is now 3:10, and I just want to thank everybody for their time. And reiterate that we appreciate all the hard work that you're doing, and thank you.